Hi, welcome back. For this video, we will talk about single needle and black. So what does it mean and why do I have it on my Instagram profile? So basically, it's tattooing with a single needle and only black ink, no gray wash. Because of these two things, it makes tattooing extremely difficult. But the result is worth it once you've mastered it. And if you can see my work, that is the result of such. So why is it so difficult? Four main reasons, three of which involves a single needle and one of which involves the black ink. So let's start. Single needle is extremely difficult to be accurate with because tattooing with such a fine tool, all the shakes are transferred much more clearly, so you have to be very steady with your hand. Second reason is because the depth control. So for single needle, it pierces the skin very easily compared to multiple needles. So you don't have a skin tension to sort of relax your hand on or rely on because it goes straight through. So you have to be very intentional with your depth. So you have to control how deep you go. Third reason is because the ink pixel output is so small because it's just a single needle pushing ink bits into your skin. So rendering an entire tattoo, let's say a medium-sized tattoo of a couple inches, is going to take you a while, especially if it's detailed. So you have to be efficient and proficient with the single needle to be practical with, or else your customer is going to be waiting forever for a medium-sized tattoo. So last reason is the black ink. The black ink, it heals much less forgiving than gray wash because with gray wash, it heals lighter. And if you go a little too deep or if you done one too many layers, it's okay, it's fine. But with black ink, that's not going to pass, so you have to be very intentional with. If you want to target a specific gray tone, then you're going to have to know how to get there effectively because let's say you approach it carefully. You build multiple layers of light gray to get to that medium gray tone that you want. Well, that's going to risk overworking the skin if you do too many layers. And if you're too confident and you go straight to that medium gray tone, then you risk going too dark. So now that we laid out all the difficulties of this style, what are the benefits? Well, you get this very unique look of a fine line tattoo, being that single needle gives you such crisp, precise details, and all black makes it heal very well, when done right, of course. Also, it's so close to drawing with a 0.3 lead pencil. Yeah, it feels just like it when I tattoo with a single needle. Also, your workstation is so clean because all you need is a cup of ink, your machine with a single needle cartridge, some pieces of paper, and a bottle of green soap. Setting up is so fast and you can get straight to tattooing. So for part two of single needle and black, I'm going to explain how one might get into this style of tattooing. So what are the necessary steps? So let's start with foundations. I'll refer to my experiences a lot because now I'm able to tattoo with this style. I'll give you many reasons or many examples in my past that I've done to transition into this style. So in the very beginning, I liked to draw when I was a very young kid. So that's already hand training experience. And then I got lost in, schooling, expectations, and then, so in college I decided that I want to tattoo. So I took drawing seriously again. So I, practiced, I trained, I drew over and over and over, and as a perfectionist, I would draw it, make mistakes, discard it, and draw it again, and very precise with, my lines and how I color things in and shade everything. So that's a lot. Drawing is a ton of experience that you could be applying to your tattoo career. So as I always say, draw. That's where you think. That's where you create. There's no pressure in, just drawing, because you can erase and you could throw it away. So, and all that translates into hand training. So the second thing is when I actually started to practice on pigskin, practice on real skin, on fruit. So, all that is also hand training as well. And back then, we used coil machines. So coil machines, they're heavier and they are stronger in vibrations compared to what we use now, which is the pen machine. So light, so soft, and very easy to use and great for fine line single needle. But because I used a heavier machine, it's just like you put on ankle weights, you take a run with it, and then after a long time of running with it, you take it off and you try running, you feel like you're a feather. So I've transitioned from coil machines to rotary machines, which is kind of an in-between between pen machines and coil machines, and then I transitioned into pen machines the later years. So yes, so coil machines and heavier machines help train your hand as well. Also, when I used to work at Dragonfly, there would be high traffic, low minimum. So there's a lot of people, waiting in the waiting benches, and I would tattoo for them, with these machines, these heavy machines. And another thing is that we hand stenciled everything. So nowadays we have, thermals, we have printers that can print out these stencils for you with ease. But it used to be that you hand stenciled everything. And again, that's hand training. You're not going to enjoy it all the time. Sometimes you have to do it. So you're going to draw until you hate it. You're going to stencil until you freaking hate it. You just wish that you could just put it in the thermal or the printer and it'll just do it for you. But you're robbing yourself of training. This is all going into hand training and your foundation. And on top of all that, I started with large needle groupings. So the smallest I would go would be a 5-round liner. I didn't know how to use a 3-round liner or even attempt it because it just felt too difficult. But later on, I transitioned to a 3-round liner and then a 1-round liner. So big needle grouping, 3-round liner, 1-round liner. You must master each of the needle groupings before you move on to the next. So until you're very proficient with large needle groupings and it's boring and it's easy for you, then you move on to 3. So and when the 3-round liner is easy for you, then you move on to the 1-round liner. You don't jump so quickly. You have to put one foot in front of the other. You can't jump and go all the way to the end and not expect consequences. So now let's talk about the ink. So using only black ink, how do you transition from gray wash to only black ink? Well, one way you can do it is use darker and darker ratio. So, okay, you're used to using very light gray, 20% gray, right? You can move on to 40 and then 60 and then 80 and then eventually black. So you can kind of ease into the darker and darker because only black ink heals darker and gray wash heals lighter. If you layer many layers, it's so much more forgiving to use gray wash than black ink because imagine all those layers and all those layers heal darker. It's just going to get really dark. You're going to ruin the tattoo. The customer's not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. When you're transitioning from gray wash to all black ink, achieving a certain gray tone, it works much differently when you're using gray wash, which is you'll just select a gray wash mixture, let's say light gray, and you'll get light gray on the skin. But if you're using all black ink, then you will have to change one or more of 4 things that I'm going to mention now. First one is depth. So the deeper you go, the darker it is. The shallower you go, the lighter it is. Second is speed. So faster you go, lighter. Slower you go, darker. Spacing between strokes. Closer together, darker. Spread apart, lighter. And lastly is layering. So the 3 that I just mentioned, you just layer on top of each other, and you get darker and darker and darker. So let me explain. Let's say you choose to go deep and you choose to go fast and you choose to go close in spacing, what you'll get is what looks like even rows of dots, close together but spaced farther apart vertically. Let's say you go shallow, you go fast, and you go wide in spacing. What you'll have is a very, very, very light, spread apart sheet of dots. Let's say you go deep, you go fast, and you go far apart in spacing. What you'll get is a darker sheet of dots spread evenly across vertically and horizontally. One more example. Let's say you go shallow and you go slow and you go close in spacing. What you'll get is a very clean, consistent sheet of light gray that you can't really make out the dots because they're so close together vertically and horizontally. But they're light, so it's like very light gray sheet, right? And with layering, you can choose to layer each of these different combinations on top of each other in different ways, and now you can understand that you'll get endless possibilities of different kinds of textures and tones and everything. So, and we're keeping in mind, for these 4 things to work, you're gonna have to be consistent in your depth, your accuracy, your hand control, everything. So, you know, if you're gonna do multiple strokes, they have to be even, or else one stands out apart from the other, and you're gonna have to go back and even it out, and it just gets darker and darker and darker. So this only works with high level of hand control. So that's what I do when I tattoo different tones of gray with only black ink, not gray wash. So when you transition from gray wash to black, you're slowly losing your reliance on the mixtures that give you the gray tones, and you're slowly experimenting with one or more of these 4 variables and achieving certain gray tones based off just these.